I had the heaviest period in my life in November, the longest period of my life in December, and then I think I might be having my period again a week and a half after my previous one. I felt like I had 2 periods within the 30-day mark. Welcome to all of you watching me on YouTube and Rumble. And I want to wish all of you a Happy New Year, even though it's already the end of January. But hey, I'm here. I want to provide some updates and all of that. I wanted to give an update on my trying to conceive journey. I've already started making videos about this, so you can definitely check it out in my playlist. I'll have it in the cards and also in the description box below. One of the first videos I made talking about my fertility and all of that, I really was discouraged because whenever I was looking up videos on YouTube about natural family planning or fertility awareness method and all of those things, I was like, well, my periods are irregular, so I feel like there would be no point of me doing that anyway. So I didn't do a deep dive into it. I kind of just talked myself out of it, thinking that maybe there's another way I can do it. I don't know. I just really kind of talked myself out of that. But I revisited those types of methods around the time I was going to see the doctor, because I was kind of going back and forth about whether I had PCOS. And part of me still wonders if I might, and I may need to get a second opinion. But either way, in my research, I started to see that there are ways to, get to know my body more. And, while still understanding that my periods may be infrequent, but there's still some important information that I could pick up. Before I go into those things, I want to first talk about my periods, because that was something that I started to get a little more hope about tracking with, because my periods have started to come back and I've been getting really excited, but also very perplexed because of how the periods have been going over the past few months. So to start off, I had about a month or so after my appointment with my doctor in October, I had my period in November, in the beginning of November, and I got really excited. I was like, okay, maybe God is really starting to set up my body to conceive. And so I was really excited. But this period in November was the heaviest period I've ever had in my life. Now, I'm gonna be throughout the rest of this video talking about blood, mucus, all those things. I know some of you watching might be grossed out, but this is a natural, real, and beautiful part of women's bodies, and we need to get used to talking about these things. So I'm letting you know ahead of time, but I encourage you to keep watching, because this might help some of you that might be in a similar situation as me. My period was really heavy, like clots upon clots were coming out of my vagina, and I was just like, okay, maybe God is setting up my body to conceive and is just shedding all of the uterine lining that has just been collecting. I'm not a fertility specialist, so I don't know if what I'm saying is right, but that's the logic that kind of worked on in my head, is that maybe my body is just clearing out a bunch of the uterine lining in order to prepare for conception. I don't know. It was a regular period of time. It was like 7 days. So even though it was really, really heavy, it was about the same time that my periods usually are. So I was like, okay, maybe that's what's going on. And then in December, late December, like the weekend before, maybe some days before Christmas, I started my period again. I was like, okay, awesome, this is great. My periods are becoming regular. I had one last month, now I have one this month. This was the longest period I've ever had in my life. It was 12 days. My period has never been that long before. And the flow was about what I'm used to. with my previous periods, but it was really long. Like, maybe it's because I'm not being as serious about like eating better and exercising. I don't know. I mean, I wasn't eating extreme junk, but I wasn't being as serious. But I was like, maybe that's what's going on. I don't know. I started to kind of feel a lot of shame, but I was like, well, it is what it is. I'll just really start to eat better with this fast that's coming up. And so I was like, okay, rather than sitting in shame, I'm just gonna move on and be like, okay, my body is the way it's going right now. I just need to pay better attention to what I'm eating. And mind you, I don't know if that's how it was going. I don't know if that was the reason why. That was just my thought process at the time. Some of you might relate to that. Like shaming ourselves for anything that happens with our bodies. Now, it's important to have self-accountability, but I don't know. I just automatically went to that space. And so that was what was going on. This part, like, it may be a little TMI, but it relates. It all relates in a way. So my husband and I had penetrative sex. He noticed that there was a little blood on the condom. And I was like, oh, I'm probably just spotting. I've spotted after my periods before. It's nothing new. And so he was freaking out, understandably, but I was like, no, I'm fine, I'm okay. And the next morning, I noticed there was still a little bit of blood on the toilet paper when I wiped in the morning. I was like, okay, I guess I'm still spotting a little bit. I'll just wear a pad. And my pad had a little bit of blood. I was like, okay, it's probably, just the spotting, like it's happened. And then the next day, it was a little bit heavier, and I was like, okay, well, this can't be my period because I just got off my period like a week and a half ago. And I kept bleeding. And this lasted for like 9 days. 9 days of bleeding. And I had to wear a pad every day during that period of time. And so I was like, okay, hold on. I had the heaviest period in my life in November, the longest period of my life in December, and then I think I might be having my period again a week and a half after my previous one. I felt like I had 2 periods within the 30-day mark. I was just really confused. This has never happened before. I was like, okay, God, is my body just still in adjustment mode? Like, are you preparing me to conceive? I don't know what's going on. I don't know what's going on. At first, I was getting excited because I thought that, okay, my periods are becoming regular, so maybe I can actually start paying attention to my fertility with my periods now. But I don't even know if what happened like a week ago was my period. I don't even know what it was. Like, at that point, I was like, okay, I'm glad that I have started to get a better understanding of how to track things, track my fertility, track my cycle and all that with other methods. I'm glad that I found out about this information a couple of months ago. I prefaced it towards the beginning of the video, but I kind of wanted to kind of focus on one thing at a time. In addition to, tracking my period, which at this point it's become unpredictable, so it's pointless to me, something I learned as I was preparing for my doctor's appointments back in October was about cervical mucus. I had never heard that term in my life. For some of you, you might have been like, oh, I've been knowing about this, and some of you might have never heard this term in your life. And so when I was researching PCOS, back when I thought I might have it, I learned about how to track ovulation and fertility windows and all of that with cervical mucus. And I'm not an expert in it, but I will definitely, I'm sorry, that's my husband's clock. Basically, cervical mucus is what our cervix produces when it's around that time for ovulation to come. So cervical mucus is one of the cues or signals that ovulation is on its way. And so I learned about that, and I was like, wait a minute, is that what has been on my underwear all this time? I thought it was just random, like, well, not random, but I always thought it was just, vaginal discharge and this and that's just a part of my body. But I didn't realize that there was a purpose, or not a purpose, but I didn't realize that it could be used as an indicator of when ovulation might be coming. And I will have a graphic of the cycle, our cycle here, so that way you can see all the phases. There's a menstrual phase, follicular phase, ovulation phase, and the luteal phase. And so the cervical mucus comes around before the ovulation phase, and it's supposed to be one of the signals that it's coming. And so I learned about that when I was researching PCOS, and I was like, oh, so this is a way that I can possibly know when my husband and I can have intercourse in order to try to conceive. And so, I don't know, that was just really empowering information. As I was getting my periods back again, I was like, okay, the cervical mucus, it has that watery, slippery, oh, and now it's kind of sticky. I was like, okay, this is more information that's helping me understand my body a little bit more. That paired along with me all of a sudden having higher sex drive, higher libido, like that information as well is just really helped me understand my body more. And I've been tracking my libido for a while. That's one thing I learned a couple of years ago about cycles and how that's like also an indicator of, when you're about to ovulate and be more fertile and things like that. But the cervical mucus, that was a game changer for me. It empowered me so much. I'll link to the video where I learned about that. She was talking about how that is something she talks to her clients about. The expert is like a fertility professional. She talks to her clients about their cervical mucus, and especially clients with PCOS. And I don't know, that was just really helpful for me. So I've been tracking cervical mucus and things like that. And I was like, okay, maybe I can use the natural functions of my body to track my, get a better idea of my cycle and when my fertile window is coming and when ovulation is coming. I'm like, okay, I don't have to think about my periods necessarily, because I thought that that's what natural feminine planning was, to track my period, get a general idea of when in the cycle, day 14 you ovulate, blah, blah, blah. I was like, that's not for me. But now I know that it's so much more than just tracking when you have your period. Now I have, the cervical mucus. And then I also learned about basal body temperature. And I heard about this. Like, I've seen all the thumbnails of the women with the thermometer in their mouth and all of that. I'm like, that's not for me either. Because I heard that that's not the most accurate way to track when to start having sex to conceive. But as you can tell, I didn't do much deep dive into this information, but now I have a better understanding of how it works. So with basal body temperature, what it is that our bodies as women gets to a certain temperature when we're ovulating and when we're preparing to ovulate. I mean, God is so good with how our body has to be at a certain temperature in order to support, cell division when the egg is starting to develop, and implantation and all of these things. It's such a beautiful thing. The basal body temperature is a way to track when ovulation has started and when it has ended. That's the basic understanding that I have right now. But it's really helpful. I'm going to start doing that. In addition to tracking my cervical mucus, I'm also going to start incorporating basal body temperature tracking and just getting an idea of how my cycle is, because I've never really thought that I would need to confirm that I'm actually ovulating. Now, there's another thing that's incorporated into this to really know for sure, which is ovulation test kits, which is meant to measure luteinizing hormone. But the luteinizing hormone is also a signal that ovulation is coming. And so I know that I have to incorporate that, but I want to just take things one step at a time. I want to get an idea of my basal body temperature, seeing when it goes down, when it spikes, things like that. and just be better able to understand my body in that way. And then I want to start to incorporate the LH strips and all of that. Yeah, so that's kind of where I'm at. And I don't know, I just think it's such a disservice that, and I'm only speaking for the American education system. I don't know about other countries, but it's just such a shame and a disservice that we as women, a lot of us, had no idea about how our bodies worked. We were told when we were young, when we were teens, doing sex ed, that if you have sex, you'll get pregnant. You better not have sex or else you'll get pregnant. None of this education has taught us as girls, when we were young girls, how our bodies worked. And then it's like, okay, well, I don't want to get pregnant, so I'll just get on birth control. And I think that's a whole conspiracy in of itself. Big pharma, all of that, just getting us drugged up. I know that there are women that take birth control for other things other than preventing pregnancy. So I'm not talking about that. But in general, I feel like there's so many of us as women that have been on birth control since we're like 15 years old. And then we get off of birth control by the time we're 30, and then our bodies, like, we don't know how our bodies work. All we know is that I haven't had a period. And it's like, okay, I want to have babies. And it's like, okay, well, why am I not having babies? Why am I not getting pregnant? In my case, this isn't my story because I've never been on hormonal birth control. But I still didn't know about my body. I didn't care that my periods were infrequent because I wasn't trying to have a kid. So I didn't care. I wasn't thinking about any of that. And I just feel like it's such a shame that we, like, a lot of us are just learning as adults. And this is another big reason why I want to track my journey, because I want to help the women out there that are just learning about these things, that feel like they'll never be able to have children because they may have infrequent periods, or maybe their periods are too frequent, because that's a thing too. I'm hoping that this is an era of us as women really learning more about our bodies, learning how it works, so that we can take control and really, not put our fertility in the hands of pharmaceutical companies. I'm sad that I'm almost 35 and I'm just learning these things, but you know what? It's fine. I'm not going to shame myself. I'm just going to chronicle my journey and share it with all of you, and hopefully this will help some of you. All right, well, thank you all so much for tuning in. Please like this video, subscribe to my channel if you want to keep up with my journey, if you want to just follow along and see how this can possibly help you in your TTC journey. And please share in the comments below how you've been feeling. Have you ever heard of cervical mucus before? How do you track your fertility and your ovulation with natural family planning or fertility awareness and all of these things? Like, let me know your thoughts, what you guys have incorporated. And also, you can, if you want to ask me questions or share a comment with me, not on YouTube or Rumble, but maybe on my Instagram, you could look me up at DemiDixon34 and shoot me a DM and we can talk there. All right, well, thank you. Oh, my phone just fell. Well, thank you all so much for watching. I hope you all have a blessed day, and I will talk to you all later. Bye.